in the Bible, a difficulty I run into, and many people run into, we run backwards as to what we're called to do. Very often, people of faith spend a lot of time telling God how big the devil is, instead of telling the devil how big their God is. We mess it up quite often. And as a demonstration, and this is critical to our analytical studies for you to understand this. Common translation today, the NIV and several other translations say that Goliath, the giant Goliath, was 9 feet plus. 9 feet tall. And he had 4 brothers that were just as big. Realistically, we have to take this into grips, because I'm looking at going, hold it. I know I have friends of faith who argue about dinosaurs, say dinosaurs did not exist. Meanwhile, the archaeologists have bones. I have people argue, I've had them say, that's all a hoax. No, they have bones. Meanwhile, if you want to believe in your 9-foot-tall man, produce 9-foot-tall man bones. It cannot happen. I submit to you, the earth will never see a man 9 feet tall, and never has. The Bible does not say Goliath was 9 feet tall. And unfortunately, conventional translations make translations to make it more palatable for you. And they take 6 spans, or 6 cubits and a span, as it's written in the text for Goliath, and say he was 9 foot tall. 6 cubits being 18-inch cubit. 6 foot times 1.5 feet is 9 feet. A span being a bit, they say he's 9 foot and a bit. But that's assuming we're talking about an 18-inch span. An 18-inch cubit. An 18-inch cubit in the time of Goliath, if he's 6 cubits, would give us a 9-foot-tall man. Meanwhile, we don't have a 9-foot-tall man. We never will, never did. What it signals to us is something in the translation has been missed. And I submit to you that if the standard cubit was 18 inches, 1,000 years after the Temple of Solomon was built, after David killed Goliath, because they're in the same era, David and Goliath and the Temple of Solomon occur within about 40, 50 years of one another. Are we talking about the same cubit, the same span in the story of Goliath as we are in the Temple of Solomon? Most likely we are. Going a roundabout way, but this is powerful stuff. The cubit used to measure Goliath was not 18 inches. I submit to you that if you and your people walked around the desert, if you had 600,000 friends with women, children, and animals, and you wandered around the desert 3,000 years ago, you would never get your fill of meat. You would never get your fill of vegetables or fish. You would never get your fill of water. By wandering around the desert with 600,000 to 2 million of your friends, you would be on the verge of starvation and malnutrition much of the time. Okay, you had manna and many other things, but in the climate of the desert, you would not gorge yourself. You would not eat like you would eat in a cold mountain culture. And as an example, if you want to go deer hunting, I have a place in northern Florida, and we have small deer. You go up north to Canada, Maine, that's where you get the big caribou, you get bigger animals in a cold culture because of the whole cycle of life. Same thing happens with these people. If these people wandered the desert, millions of them, they never got their fill, and I submit to you, they probably came out with stunted growth. The people of the ancients were small people, tiny people. And if you and all your friends, the Bible tells us during the Exodus wandering, all the adults of Egypt is a very giving culture because of the river Nile. All the adults of the Nile that came from the Nile, that came from Egypt, died during the wandering. That means as the young people came of age during the Exodus wandering, they would all be desert dwellers, wanderers, Bedouins, and they would all be tiny, 4.5 feet tall, 5 feet tall. That's it. Interestingly, if after wandering in the desert for many, many years, if you had never seen a person over 5 feet tall, the first 6.5 foot tall person you saw would appear to be a giant. Think about it. When we take an elbow to fingertip being 18 inches, if we just remove 4 inches from it, make this the shorter person, we would have a 20% reduction in the size of our giant, making our 9 foot tall Goliath 7 feet tall. And really that could have been an exaggeration. He was probably 6.5 feet tall, as were his brothers. And that's why we haven't found him. Meanwhile, this is upsetting people because you put your faith in a giant. You put your faith in the devil. You made the devil too big, the giant too big. Make God bigger and your devil smaller, and you'll win a whole lot more often. But here's the key. If we have to reduce the size of our perceived giant, Goliath, in the time of David, by 20% to get him within a realistic size of man. And it's reasonable because if the people were 5 foot tall and he was 6.5, he would appear to be a giant. If Shaquille O'Neal walked in here at 7 foot 2, he would appear to be a giant. He would appear to be a freak of nature. He might be, but he would have been as big as he needed to be for the giant of the Bible. Meanwhile, if we reduce the size of our giant by 20%, we actually have to look at our conventional size of the Temple of Solomon and reduce it by 20%. And what happens is there's a radical shift in the size of temple, internally and externally, we're looking for. And we actually find it when we get down to these kind of details and discover what we're looking for.